Hi, it's Jordan Teen 1, and today I'll be showing you how to make my new Love Letter Bracelet. And here's what it looks like. So you can see I had to zoom out all the way to fit it in here. So it has the heart at the top and bottom, and then the letters L-O-V-E down the middle. And this is a technique that I actually came up with last summer. I just never did a tutorial on it. So you can see how the bands look on the front, and then if you flip to the back, they actually have a pretty cool look too. Only if you do letters, obviously it's going to be backwards on the reverse side. And this is actually a bracelet here that I did. This is one of the first ones that I had done last year, just using the solid stripe there. And you may have noticed on my Facebook page last summer, I was doing some things with the flags. This is the American flag that I had done. You can see what it looks like on the back. And then I had also done the British flag here. So today I'm going to be focusing on the Love Letter Bracelet. And I've made a graph here of what we're going to be following with a pattern. So you can see that mine is going to be 51 rows long, and really depending on the size of your wrist, you may need to make it a little bit shorter or longer. So basically every about 6 or 7 rows equals 1 inch, so you can judge by that. So you can see that the first 4 rows are going to be just solid the whole way across. And today I'm going to be using black and pink Rainbow Loom rubber bands. So let me just zoom in here, get it a lot closer so you can see what I'm doing. So you're going to need 52 bands of whatever color you want your hearts and letters to be. So for this one, mine are going to be pink. And then you're going to need about 150 more of your background color. So I have black. So it's going to be somewhere around 200 bands in total. And you can make this using either the Rainbow Loom or the Monster Tail. And today I'll be showing it on the Monster Tail. So let me just turn my loom sideways. I think it'll be easier to follow this way. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my background color, and I'm going to put one from the bottom left going straight up, and then from the middle going straight up, and then finally from the right side. And then I'm going to take another band that's going to stretch from the left side all the way to the right. It's going to be a little bit of a long stretch there. And now what I'm going to do is take the bands that are on the top row here. I'm going to move this to the pin below. I'm going to do that for all 3 here. And then I'm going to take that bottom band and move it over the top. That's just going to make a slip knot that's going to go around that long band. And now what I'm going to do is just take this off of the pin and just wiggle it back and forth just to get that slip knot nice and snug against there. And I'm just going to put it back on. Do that for all 3 here. Just tightening that up. So what we've done here is just laid the foundation. These bands here are going to actually be getting extended and moving up inside of the bracelet for the whole length. So this actually isn't the first row yet. So now we're going to start the first row, which is going to be the pattern we're going to follow. In the upper left hand corner, you'll notice small sections of the graph bracelet that I have added in order to make it a little bit easier to follow along. And you can see that the graph is upside down, so we're always going to be working from the bottom up, and I will have a little yellow box surrounding the row that we're currently working on. So to begin with, we're going to do 4 rows of your solid background color. So mine is going to be black. So I'm going to be doubling all of my bands that I lay from the bottom to the top. So in order to do that, I'm just putting it on my hook, twisting and putting it back on so that you'll see the 2 loops. And now that has to stretch from the top to the bottom. I'm going to start on the left. It is a little bit more challenging when you're working with doubled bands, but if you don't double the bands, the loops aren't tight enough, and it gives it more of like a shaggy, a little bit messier look. I mean, it will still work if you don't double them, but I would recommend doubling them. So I'm doing the second one here, and this one's going to go from the middle down. And then here, I'm going to do another doubled band. Oops, I lost it there, so that's alright. I'm just going to pick it back up and stretch it down. And now I always need to do a cross band after every layer. So I'm doing this long stretch here. And then I want the top row to move to the bottom row. So starting on the left, just going to pick these 2 up. And you probably want to hold the front with your thumb just so it doesn't slip off, since these are really tight. So as you work your way over, just hold it in the front here. And also, if you can, try and keep your bands sort of straight, not get them too twisted. Just gives it a little bit of a neater look when it's done. And so now what I'm going to do is take the bottom rubber band and release it from the right and then the left. I'm going to push this all the way down to the bottom, and then I'm going to repeat that pattern again. So I'm doubling the band, and I'm going to put it on the left side here. From the back, I'm just going to pull it down to the front. And then I'll do one for the center. And when you put those on, if you think your bands look like they got pretty twisted, what you can do is just take an extra second and run your hook around. Just try and get them a little bit straightened out. And then finally I'll do another one for the right side here. And then I'm going to do that cross band. And now I want the ones on the back to move to the front. So again, use your thumb and hold the front here. And now I'm going to remove the bottom here from the right, and then also the left. So now you can see we have 2 sets of bands on the front here, and every time I do 2 sets, what I'm going to do is bring this bottom band up through. So these are the first bands that we laid. So what you're going to do is take your hook. You want to go through all of them except for the one at the very bottom. So you're going to push your hook, the back of your hook out. You can see I have them all but the very last one. I'm going to grab that last band and it's going to get pulled up through. I'm going to leave that on my hook, and then I'm just going to slide these other bands off of that pin. Just be careful that none of the other rubber bands are jumping off any of the other pins. And then I'm going to put that center band right back on. It's the one that went up through the center here. And so now I'm going to do the same thing with the middle. So I'm going to push back here till I see that I have just that one left. I'm going to grab it on the hook, pull it up through, slide these other ones off, and then put this right back on. You may find it a little bit tricky to do at first, but I think after a few times you'll get the hang of it. So now on the right hand side, doing the same thing, you're going down through all except for the very bottom one. If you want, you can use your thumb and sort of hold this bottom band, pull it down so you can see what you're doing a little bit better. Push your hook out, grab this bottom band, pull it up through, and slide the other ones off, and then slip this back on. So now you can see how it looks. This is going to be the back. So we've done 2 rows now. We're going to do 2 more of the solid black. So again, I'm just going to double and put these on. Just going across all 3 sets of pins here. And now the one on the right. And this one looks a little bit twisted. Let me just go around it here. And then I'm going to do this cross band. Now the ones in the back move front. And I'm going to remove this bottom one on the right and the left. Push this down. And I'm going to do another set of black before I pull those vertical bands up through. And eventually we're going to have to extend the vertical bands, and I'll show you how to do that as well. Some of my other bracelets that I've done, I've used that same technique of extending the vertical bands, like my Weavezilla bracelet, for example. And so now I'm going to place my crossband, and you might have to keep pushing these down because these front pins do get very full. And now I'm just going to bring the back ones forward. I'll remove the bottom on the sides. And now that I have 2 sets on and my pins are really full, again I want to bring that bottom band up through. So I'm just going down through all but the last one, pushing back. Sometimes it's a little bit of a challenge to make sure you have that bottom one. It's going to come up through. It really doesn't have to get pulled real high up, as long as it just gets above the pin there. Leave it on my hook and slide these other ones off and get this right back on. Do it for the center. And then finally for the right. So you can see here now we've done the 4 rows. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend the vertical bands. So in order to do that, you're just going to add 1 single band for these 3 rows. And then you want the bottom here to come over the top and then into the center. And now what you're going to do is move the back row forward. It's really basically going to be the same thing we did for the very beginning. We're just going to make another slip knot. And the bottom will come over the top. And then you just want to lift this up and pull and put it back on. So when you extend these, I'm just going to pull the rest of these. They might want to try and slide off the pins because they are kind of long, and this is probably the most struggle that you'll have is with this part here. But what I recommend is if you pull this down as far as you can at the bottom, it helps these to naturally stay on here. So now that we've completed our 4 rows of black, we're ready to start the first row that has the top of the heart. So you can see that the 2 ends are going to be your heart color and the center is going to be your background color. So I have pink that's going to be my heart. And then black again for the center. And then I have pink for the right. And now I'm going to do that cross band. And the back row comes forward. And I'm taking off the right and left. And then for the next row, all 3 are going to be the heart color. Now my cross band, I'm going to move these to the front. And I'll take them off the sides. And so again, now that I have 2 sets on, I need this bottom to come up through, just the very bottom here. So this time it'll be much easier because I can see it's a totally different color. Just grabbing it, pulling it up, leaving it on my hook, and using my thumb to just slide the rest off. And then put it back on. And you might want to just give it a little tug, just since we added that extension. Make sure that it comes up through. You don't want it to be too tight, but you don't want there to be a gap in it either. And then here, just make sure I have the bottom one. You can see this one on the left here is trying to slip off since it is on the loose side. Let me just hold that in place. Put this back on. And then finally I have this last row, grabbing the black, slip these off. And again, as you're slipping this off, you're naturally pulling up on this, so just make sure like the ones next to it aren't sliding off the pins. So I'm just going to pull this down. And now for this next row, you want the 2 ends to be your background color and just the center row to be your heart color. So now I have my long stretch, and the back comes up, and then the sides. And now for my next 4 rows, I'm going to be doing all black. So I'm just going to fast forward through this part. And this is the place where if you need to make your bracelet smaller, you're obviously going to eliminate the rows that are solid. So if you think you need a smaller bracelet than the 51 rows, then you can just eliminate in between the heart and the letters. And then of course also the ends can be shortened as well. I've completed 3 of the 4 all black rows, and I feel like my vertical bands are getting a little bit tight, so I want to just go ahead and extend them. So I'm just going to repeat this process again of just putting one single band on all 3 here. And then I'm just taking the bottom band off of the front pins. And then the back row will come forward. And then the bottom band will come over the top to make that slip knot. And then I'm just going to just pull this so it gets a little bit snug there. Again, you might have a little bit of a hard time with the bands wanting to stay on the pins when you do this part. So as I said, just pull down as far as you can to try and help them to stay on. So I'm just going to do my next row that's all black. Now for this next row, I'm ready to begin the letter L. So I'm going to be using pink or whatever your letter color is, and it's going to go on the right hand side. And I'm just going to straighten this out a second here, smooth it. And now the other 2 on this row are going to be your background color. And then I'm going to do my crossband here. And then remove those sides here. And now I'm going to repeat that same pattern for the next 3 layers. And now for the lower part of the L, you're going to have all three of your letter color. So I have all three pink. Next, I'm going to have 3 rows of all of my background color. So I'm just going to fast forward here, and depending on the tightness of your vertical bands, you may need to add your extension bands soon. So now I'm ready to start the letter O, and I do want to add some extension bands right here before I go any further. So for the letter O, the first row is going to be your solid letter color. I'm going to push this down. And then for the next 3 rows, it's going to be your letter color on the 2 edges and the background color in the middle. So since I just added these extensions, I want to pull them pretty hard to make sure that they're nice and snug. You can see that slip knot is sort of coming up through just a little bit. So you can see they're trying to slip off here. So I'm just going to push that down as far as I can to try and keep those on the pins. So I have 2 more rows to do with just the background color in the center. And now for the bottom of the O, again, it's your solid color. And then once again, we're going to have 3 more layers of all black, or whatever your background is. And now for the V, we're going to have 3 rows of your letter color on the outsides and your background color in the center. And then the next row is going to be solid across with your letter color. And now I have one more row to do for the V, but before I do that, I'm going to add some extension bands. Now for the last row of the V, we want the background color on the outside. And then the letter color in the middle. And you can see that my vertical band doesn't want to stay on here. So again, I have the background color. Just going to have to make sure this stays on as I'm placing this on. And then it's 3 more rows of your background color. Now we're on to the last letter, the E. So the top row here is going to be all 3 of your letter color. And then for the next layer, it's going to be pink or whatever your letter color is on the right, and then your background for the next 2. And then for this next row, it's going to be the center of the E. So I'm going to be using my letter color the whole way across. And then again, just the letter color on the right. And then the background for the remainder of that row. And then finally, I have all of the letter color for this next row. So this is the bottom of the E. And now I have 4 rows of black of all the background color. And I do have one more solid row of black to do, but I'm going to extend my vertical bands again because I can feel they're getting tight. So I'll do that last row of black here. And now I have my last heart to make. So for that, I want my color to be on the outside edges and then the black in the middle. And these are going to be kind of long because I did just extend them. So they are a little bit more of a struggle to stay on the pin, as I'm sure you're aware. And now the middle row of the heart is going to be all three of my pink color here. And then the very bottom is going to be the background color on the two ends. And then the heart color in the middle. So we're getting there. We're almost at the end here. I know this is a very long bracelet to do. And hopefully I won't have to put any more extensions on for the rest of the bracelet, because you want to try not to have any extensions put on when it gets near the end, because they'll be sticking out the end of the bracelet. So sometimes that's a little tricky to deal with. And so now the last thing that I have to do is add 4 more rows of all black, or whatever your background color is. Now I'm finally done, so I just need to take this off of the loom. So I'm going to take the band that's over on the right and move that into the left, and then the same thing on the left, I'm moving that over to the right, and then I want the bottom band to come over the top, and then I'm also going to take the one on the right here and move it over to the middle, and the same thing with the left. And I'm just going to leave them all together, and I'm going to take a clip. I have a C-clip here, and I'm just going to attach those bands through. If you wanted, you can remove the bottom one and pull it over the top so you have just 2 bands left. But I'm just going to leave it with the 3. Hook this clip on. And it looks like they're not all 3 around there, so let me just get them on there. I can take this off, and you can see that here is your bracelet. So you may need to do a little bit of adjusting. Let me just zoom out here again. So what you want to do is just starting from the top, you can just carefully, don't pull too hard, but just stretch these out, and you can try and even them up. Sometimes they're a little bit overlapping, so you can just take your time and make them look as neat as possible. I hope that everyone loves their new Love Letter bracelets. You can always leave me comments on YouTube and Facebook, post pictures of your creations to my Facebook page, and please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can stay up to date on my latest tutorials. You can also find me on Pinterest and Instagram, so please feel free to subscribe to those as well. Thanks for watching!